In Squid Game, we witnessed hundreds and hundreds of brutal deaths, but behind these twisted games was a hierarchy of different ranks, from the bottom all the way to the top. But what exactly are these ranks, and what role do they play in the game? Well, our ranking starts at the bottom, which were none other than the pink guards. Besides having cool jumpsuits, these guards are essential to making sure that the games run smoothly and also that everyone plays fair. Now, the guards are divided into 3 groups, all based on the shape on their mask: circles, triangles, and squares. However, these weren't just any random shapes, but instead, each shape represents their rank as a guard. Starting with the lowest are the workers, or better known as the guards with circles on their masks. The workers are known for being at the bottom of the hierarchy, as they're almost never allowed to speak, they couldn't ever make decisions, and they aren't even given a weapon. Despite this though, they're actually pretty important to the game, since they would do crucial chores around that would make sure that the games are always in order. Some of their duties included cooking, cleaning, and helping out with the games, like giving food to the players whenever it was time for them to eat. Not only this, but they're also the ones responsible for carrying out the players' bodies to their coffins, and from there, cremating them into the incinerators. However, on top of all their duties, they had to follow a strict rule code so that way the games were fair to every player, and therefore there was never any chaos. Some of these rules included to wear their mask at all times unless in their room, to never show any compassion towards players, to never speak without permission, to never disrespect anybody that was ranked higher than them, and to always be ready to sacrifice themselves. At times, there might be a hostile situation, but the workers are always expected to sacrifice their own lives if ever needed to. Now, above the workers are the soldiers, or also known as the guards with triangles on their masks. These guards are the enforcers of the game and would always keep the players going by striking fear into them. Unlike the workers, the soldiers are always armed with guns, and throughout the series, you'll see them holding many different types of weapons, such as snipers in the red light green light game and submachine guns in some of the other games. Their main duties are to eliminate players whenever they'd fail a game and to make sure nobody ever broke the rules. In a way, you could see them as the muscle of the game, since they're the ones to put players out of their misery and were sometimes forced to get their hands dirty if things ever got out of hand. However, above the workers and the soldiers are the managers, who are also known as the guards with squares on their masks. The managers are the supervisors of the game and are known to be the leaders of the other guards, since they were some of the frontman's most trusted members. Unlike the soldiers though, the managers didn't strike fear by their weapons, but instead by their demands and their strategies. Most of their responsibilities included organizing, monitoring, and even enforcing games whenever they had to. However, when the games weren't going on, they'd spend a lot of their time observing the security cameras to make sure that everyone was following the rules and things were always running smoothly. It's also worth mentioning that because they're the highest rank out of the guards, they were able to speak more freely and had the authority to discipline anyone under them if they ever stepped out of line. Now, above them was one of the most important roles of the game, the Salesman. Although the Salesman isn't present at the games like the others we've spoken about, his job is to recruit the players into the game by using his manipulative tactics. In Season 2, we learned that the Salesman was actually a former guard himself, and even shot down his own father in the games. However, after a few years, he gained the trust of the frontman and earned one of the most crucial ranks by recruiting players into the games. Every single year, he would go to different parks and subway stations to lure desperate people by finding them at their lowest point and offering them money to play a game of dakshi. If they lose, he slaps them on the face, and if they win, he grants them money. If they do manage to win, he then hands them a card and offers an opportunity of a lifetime to make even more money. However, what makes a salesman so dangerous is that he never forces these players to join the games, but instead he smiles and leaves it completely up to them to join on their own will. Because he never forces anybody, it leaves the recruits curious and wanting more of that money where it came from, and because of that, they usually end up joining. But the salesman wasn't the highest rank possible, not by far. Above both the salesman and the guards is the masked officer, a very dangerous and corrupt position that only one person held. Unlike the pink jumpsuits, the masked officer wore a black suit and was a substitute for the frontman when he decided to enter the games as player 1. His responsibilities were to supervise and command the guards under him, and to also ensure the games operated fairly while the frontman was gone. We also find out later on that he was the main source of the organ harvesting and did whatever he could to use his power to his advantage. Now, although we don't know when he joined the games, it's likely to assume that he was a former manager himself and over the years gained the trust of the frontman to be promoted to this high rank. But of course above him was the frontman himself, the overseer of the games, and basically the CEO. In the show, we learned that his real name was gi-hun and was actually a former winner of the games in 2015. However, his journey to become the frontman all started years back when his pregnant wife was diagnosed with a rare illness, and over time her health got so bad that she needed a liver transplant. Because her illness was getting worse and worse, doctors tried to tell her that she should terminate her pregnancy, but she refused to listen. Even with her sickness, she wanted to give birth, and that decision is what doomed everything. At the time, Ino was a police officer, and since he didn't have a lot of money, he accepted money from a criminal so he could pay for his wife's medical treatment. Unfortunately for him though, his superiors found out about what he did, and as a result, fired him from his job as a cop. From there, he then joined the Squid Games as a final resort to make money, and he ultimately did by winning the games. However, by the time he won, it was too late and his wife passed away with their unborn child, which is when everything in his life started to change. Since he had no more hope in humanity, he stayed involved with the games and stuck side by side with the creator of them, who was Ilnam. From there, he then worked his way up to becoming the front man. But although he was one of the highest ranks in the Squid Games, he wasn't at the top. Above him were the VIPs, the spectators, the elite, and most of all, the untouchables. The VIPs are a group of rich men who watch the Squid Games for pure entertainment. They'd place bets on the players in hopes to make more money and would thrive by watching the pain and suffering the players had to go through. A huge takeaway from this group are their unique masks, as each VIP had a different animal on their face. The ones we've seen so far is VIP 1, who was a lion, VIP 2, who was a buffalo, VIP 3, who was a deer, VIP 4, who was a panther, VIP 5, who was a bear, and VIP 6, who was an eagle. A lot of these rich men are American, although the deer mask VIP speaks with a Chinese accent and the eagle mask VIP speaks with a French accent. Now, although we first saw them in season 1, they were actually around way before that. Over 30 years ago, every single one of these men actually used to be clients of the creator Ilnam at his business back then. However, one day they were so bored with their lives that they invested their money into the Squid Games simply so they could be entertained. They helped fund the game since 1988 and did whatever they could in their power to make sure the games were run, so in a way, without them, the games would never exist. Now, it's worth mentioning that during the time we saw them in season 1, they were served by two of some of the lowest ranks in the hierarchy. The first were the human furniture, which were humans that were body painted just to be used as objects for the VIPs. Then there were the masked waiters, who basically did whatever the VIPs asked them to do without question or hesitation. You gotta understand, the VIPs were ruthless and they didn't care at all about human feelings or emotions, since at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered to them was whether they were entertained by the games or not. Because of their wealth and status, they were so high up in the rankings that we even see the front man taking orders from them and doing whatever they asked. But while they were above everybody else we've spoken about so far, there's one person who they were under, and that was the host of the game, Player 1, or also known as Ilnam. Ilnam was the creator of the Squid Games for over 32 years and created the games just as a way to have more fun. Back when he was young, he was so bored with living such a rich lifestyle, so that's when he created the Squid Games along with the VIPs we just spoke about. By creating these deadly competitions, he believed that it would give him the same thrill that he had when he was a child and really allow him to feel that same joy and excitement again. However, by 2020, Ilnam was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and since he didn't have much longer to live, he wanted to relive his childhood by entering the games himself. Since he knew it would be his last chance to ever play, he decided to not just watch that year and instead join as a player. Throughout his time there, he was able to win the first 3 games and along the way develop a close friendship with the main character of the story, gi-hun. As Ilnam described it while he was on his deathbed, playing in the games made him feel alive again, and it really allowed him to enjoy his final moments before his death. So with that said, that's every single rank in Squid Game from lowest to highest. But if you could choose one, which rank would you be?